Hello, hello. Welcome on into the stream for those who are joining right away. This is On Fire for Hers. First recorded stream, so I'm gonna upload this to YouTube later. For those who don't know what this is, I do calligraphy with artwork from the Apocrypha, with verses from the Apocrypha. And so what I'll be doing here is I'll just be doing a little painting, as you can see here, in addition to doing a bit of chatting. And today, what I wanted to chat about is pastorship and the different kinds of pastors I've experienced during my walk as a Christian. Just because there are different types of pastorship that I've experienced as a Christian, different, four different specific types of pastors, which of course is painting in broad brushes, of course, because people are different, people are individuals. But if I was to categorize the types of pastors or really spiritual mentors that I've encountered during my walk of faith, I'd put them into four main categories. So while I'm painting, I will be going through these categories. So let's see how well I can. This is my first time doing this sort of talk while I discussion while I paint thing. We'll see how well I'm able to multitask. Gaming. For those wondering what the grasshopper means, it's a reference to this verse from the second Esdras. You pass away out of the world as grasshoppers, so their life is astonishment and fear. And nurses out of our reach just sort of show that, and show this grasshopper being pierced. This sort of like a dramatic show of the short-legged, fearful, and merciless life of grasshopper, which oftentimes our lives can feel like. That's kind of was my idea of portraying this. Let's see. Answer to me and say. Because he or she, keep in mind spiritual mentors in some denominations have female pastors. So anyway, he or she is rare because they connect to you very deeply in some way or the other. They're of great aid to you. They offer you wisdom in your life, and it's someone that you can connect to. And it's unfortunate that I consider them a unicorn because they're a unicorn because, again, they're rare. Like the unicorn is a mythical beast, and so often it can feel like pastors who can connect to us, who we can trust, can be a rarity. And for a long time I felt like that. Perhaps sadly, neither of the two people in my life who I consider unicorns in this regards are proper pastors. The first of them is an elderly man from my church who holds no leadership position, but he's often around at the daily church services, the daily masses, and he's very friendly. But more than friendly, he knows how to really dig into the scriptures. He's very knowledgeable on theology, on the scriptures. Again, again, even that's not the long and short of it. He cares. He shows he cares through his actions. He always is looking to help those who are like less fortunate in the parish. He's always doing his best to provide for those in the parish, and he's been a great source of comfort and for me, and he's very available for me. So that's like one example of a unicorn in my life, where like this elderly man is like being willing to like discuss with me the faith and the ways to keep the faith, and he's given me comfort in dark times. So very appreciative. And the other unicorn I'd consider is my spiritual director, my current spiritual director. For those who don't know, spiritual director is much akin to a therapist, except instead of helping you on matters of the mind, they'll help you on matters of the soul. And this spiritual director I met at a spiritual retreat at an abbey I went to, and she was she seemed to know me. She got me. And that's been to continue ever since. During that spiritual retreat, I asked her, hey, my current spiritual director doesn't seem to get me, and so do you think you can be my new spiritual director? And she said yes. And so eventually we started doing monthly spiritual direction, and ever since then, she's been of a great aid to me in my spiritual walk with Christ and in general. She doesn't judge, is the important thing for me. She listens, and she seems to get where I'm coming from when it comes to the matters in my spiritual life. So I'm really appreciative of. And it's just something I'm really appreciative of. So that's the unicorn step. Basically someone who is there for you, is a support to you, and gets you on some level. Not necessarily on all levels, because that's difficult for any person to get you on all levels, but they do kind of, they're willing to listen and to know you, and that's the important thing. So we started out with the best kind of pastor, which can be quite hard to find for a lot of people. It was hard for me to find people like these. The second type of pastor, I'd say, would be, or a spiritual mentor, would be a condor. Now, the condor is so named because he or she is typically in a leadership position in the parish, almost always, and they are like, they do their good job, usually. They know how to manage the parish, they're good with the funds maybe, or they're good with the preaching. Somewhere or the other, they're very good at that sort of thing. But they're called a condor because they're kind of distant. They're very distant. They're up in the sky, distant. Not necessarily with all people, but certainly with you. A good example of this is the current priest at my current parish. He has wonderful sermons. I love him to bits. Wonderful sermons, very knowledgeable in the scriptures and on church history. But I've engaged him one-on-one several times, and he just kind of... he's a bit stiff and standoffish, at least for me. I've heard he's different for other people. So that's what I describe as condor. Next type of pastor I describe as the octopus. It's similar to the condor, but whereas the condor is distant, the octopus is very engaged. Like, Hence, you think of an octopus with lots of arms, they can do a lot of stuff. The octopus in a parish will be like very active, maybe in the youth ministry, maybe in different ministries. So you probably get to know the octopus. But here's the thing about the octopus that differentiates them from... So that's how they differentiate from the condor, because they're active and you might probably know them on a personal level at some point. But what separates them from a unicorn is that a octopus type of pastor is not going to really... An octopus is sort of different and alien. And while that's an extreme way to put it, if someone is like an octopus in your life, then they're very active with you, then they may know you, but they don't really... You and them, through no fault of their own, are just on different wavelengths. They don't really... You're not the person you go to if you truly want someone to listen and understand. Yeah, typically for no fault of their own, they just simply are on a different wavelength. That's no problem. But it does make it mean that, like I said, you're not going to be able to get that more deeply personal connection that you can with, that you might want from them as a pastor or a spiritual mentor. There's a deacon at my church who's part of the youth ministry I'm a part of. He's a great guy, I love him. But he'd be an octopus to me because he's more of a macho man, very sort of a tough guy, which is good, which is great. But it's not someone that I'd personally go to when I have a deeply personal question or deeply personal issue that I'm handling. Then the final type of pastor that I'd really consider would be the worst of the worst, the viper. These are the types of pastors that in the New Testament it refers to as the wolves in sheep's clothing. I call them vipers instead, just because I kind of like wolves. I think wolves are cool. Whereas vipers I have no love for, so they gotta be vipers. Now, I've met several vipers, unfortunately. A couple during my time going through my walk of faith. The first one was a pastor at a local non-denominational church, because I had happened to meet him at a Bible study he was putting on, because I was curious to see. I had been invited by a friend, and kind of encouraged. We got into a bit of an argument the first time we met because of a theological disagreement, and he sort of lectured me on how poorly I handled myself in the argument. But he said, "Hey, why don't we talk one-on-one? Why don't we talk one-on-one about this?" And me trying to smooth things over, I said, "Sure, let's do that." So we met a few times. He seemed to be really nice, really personable, really understanding, and I thought, wow, this guy seems to get me. Maybe I should continue these talks. But what opened my eyes about him is that he was... When I one time went to the church that he was pastor at when he wasn't there, and some of the staff were putting up Christmas tree decorations, like Christmas decorations. And he then... Let's see, is this dry? No, not dry. He was putting up Christmas tree decorations and he wasn't there, so I get to talking with one of the guys there who knows the pastor very well, and I bring up, I bring up the scriptures to him. Bring up, Why is it that, somehow it gets to the topic about, like, well, how true are the scriptures? And I say, well, scriptures are a bit gray. They're a bit difficult to, like, understand. And he says, no, the scriptures are black and white. And I asked this guy, well, not the pastor, just a friend of the pastor. Well, how can that be? You have so many different denominations. And he says, yeah, but those other denominations, they, like, they aren't really paying attention, or they're prideful, or something along those lines. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure the scriptures are pretty more, like, muddled on some things in terms of, like, not being entirely clear. And then the pastor's wife, who happened to be there, stepped in and said, oh no, they're black and white. And that got me thinking, well, if this pastor's, everyone who knows the pastor says the scripture's black and white, that's probably something he believes. It got me thinking, well, I'm a Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic. The pastor knows this. I wonder what he thinks of me not following his particular belief systems if he thinks the scriptures are so black and white. He must think either I'm intentionally befuddled or that I'm a fool. So that sort of clued me in that he was a viper. Because I realized that he didn't really want to have this dialogue with me, have these talks with me to be a friend or to engage in shared friendship. He was trying to win me over to his particular church. And that's really the key point of vipers. They don't, when they do good things, kind things for you, and this is true of people, not just pastors, but it's particularly worse when it comes to pastors and spiritual mentors. They don't want what's best for you, they want what's best for them, so they'll play you along, play you like a fiddle sometimes, just so they can get what they ultimately want. There's another fellow, a priest, and it was during a time that I really wanted to be a priest myself. So I went to this priest, and I talked to him about him being my spiritual director. And so he said yes. As time went on, however, I began to feel that he wasn't really getting me, that we weren't really connecting on a close enough level, so I ended spiritual direction with him. But then I came back to him and asked, hey, I thought it over, and I decided, it's hard to find a spiritual director these days, even if we don't see eye to eye, maybe we can still work something out. So I came to him with that in mind. And what he told me was, I'm sorry, we can't continue to go back to spiritual direction because you aren't a high enough priority for me. You aren't a high priority for me. And that hurt. That stung, because this guy had been my spiritual director for months at this point. Now later, it came to my mind that, hey, I bet that if I had ended up becoming a priest, that would have been a nice feather in his cap, because he had just started, he was pastor of a new church. Getting someone into seminary would have been a nice feather in his cap for him. Really legitimized him, perhaps. Which is just, of course, not necessarily something I have proof of, but as Barra would have it, I later found out that not too long after he quit spiritual direction me, he took on spiritual direction, or at least mentorship, of another fellow who did end up being able to join the priesthood. So we have this. So that's the theme that you see in Vipers. They tend to have ulterior motives, and so they're willing to hurt you to get to what they want, without really much consideration of how you feel. And the third and most egregious example of this that I've encountered is a person that was really a friend first and pastor second. Yeah, he did the music at a local Anglican church. And he was very nice, very kind. At least he seemed that way at first. And still drying. And he was very... in hindsight, manipulative. He'd say things to undermine me, to make me feel bad about myself. Gaslighting gets thrown around a lot, but here's the thing. When you're experiencing amnesia around a specific person and no one else, where they'll say, hey, this kind of hurt me, this thing you said, and they say, no, I never said that. And it's a reoccurring thing, and this is only around this person. I think you might be... That seems like gaslighting to me, and I'm pretty confident that's what was happening with me. Because he'd say hurtful things. He'd say things that really got it under my skin, and then when I brought those up to him, he'd say, oh, I never said that. And he really toyed with me and played around with my mental health. My mental health was kind of... Because I consider him a deep friend. I consider him like a unicorn. That I thought I could go to him and trust him because he seemed like such an open, understanding, caring person who was willing to hear me out, was willing to listen to my troubles, to what I was going through. But at the end of the day, he just kind of was a viper. Because remember the conversation that really sealed the deal for me, that really opened my eyes to him, is when I was expressing confusion over why I was feeling so angry about him, because that was like another sign. I'd walk away with conversations from him I'd had with him, and I'd walk away confused and angry and upset. Whereas with most people, if they're a positive influence in your life and in my life, and I'm sure in your life, then you walk away feeling better about yourself with the conversation. But that wasn't the case with him. I always walked away feeling upset about how the conversation had gone. So I confronted him about this, and he turned the tables, as he often did. He talked about how, oh, are you sure you're really a Christian if you have the doubts that you do? Are you sure you're really my brother in Christ? And he said a lot of other hurtful, really insidious things. And so later I went back to him, and I confronted him about what he'd said. And he refused to acknowledge, really, that he was in the wrong. He said he was sorry for having hurt me. He said he was sorry for having had the conversation in the first place. But he wasn't sorry for the things he said, because I did press him on that. Are you sorry for having said the things you said? And he said, no, because I was trying to heal you. I was just trying to help you. And that's often how these type of people will play it as. They're trying to help you or heal. So, that was that person in my life. And the long and short of it is, I don't tell you all this so you can go about fearing close connections to people who are supposed to be your spiritual mentors, but to be aware that not everyone who's in a position of power is going to be using it rightly. But at the same time, there are good people out there. There are good people, if you go looking, who will be able to help you on your spiritual walk with Christ. And I've found those people. I talked about the unicorns when I first started this stream about the elderly man in my church, about my current spiritual director. They're a great boon to my spiritual walk, and you can find those people. You just have to pray that God will put them in your life, and then keep an eye open for them. I do apologize because I haven't been able to do a lot of painting, but I've kind of chosen a bad time for painting because I was almost done with this page, so now I have to wait for these lines to dry before I can turn the page. So apologies for that. In regards to just finding good people, like I said, part of it is like going to a church, taking the steps to go to the church, get involved, because that's how, and get involved in like things like my spiritual director I found because I did one on a spiritual retreat. So doing those opportunities when they arrive and if they're available to you. I know this old man from my church because I go to the morning services and I go to the breakfast afterwards, so I talk to him quite a bit. People who will help you on your spiritual journey are out there. Just go looking. And, well, sometimes you can get burned. That shouldn't be the reason to give up. Because it's my belief that God has a plan. And, well, we can't always comprehend that plan. We can do our best to help it along. To walk in the faith that Christ has something better for us. Since we have a bit of time, let's see, is this dried out? I know this is kind of like, you're just touching it to see if it's wet. Which I know is like kind of like not a very, you could argue it's not a very good method of determining if the paint's wet, because you get your hands all, you can see like a bit there, yeah, there. But it's kind of like the only method I know. If there's a better method, I'm sure there's one out there, but this is kind of, sometimes the simple method is the best method. Paint wet? Let's try touching it. Yeah, I think it's dried at this point. Yeah, it's dried at this point, so let's start over the page. Start afresh. New page. So, since I finished talking about pastors, and I still want to keep on chatting if I can, because I still have a bit of time before I have to start getting ready for work. And this is an art stream, and I haven't done quite enough art for my liking. Let's talk a bit about why I do calligraphy in the first place. Yeah. So why do I do calligraphy? Well, I mentioned before that I've had bad experiences with certain people. This person I once considered a friend, we got into an argument about theology and faith and about the church, and he was very cruel during it. He wasn't very mindful of my feelings. So I left it and feeling very depressed about my own beliefs and like questioning my own beliefs to a, which isn't bad, questioning your own beliefs, but when someone's getting into your head, it can be rather not nice, for lack of a better term. More thou searchest. That's the verse I'm doing calligraphy for now. The more thou searchest, the more thou shalt marvel. That's beautiful. Now, so after this bad conversation I had with this one friend, I was feeling very depressed, so I prayed on it. And I decided to do some self-comfort by watching a movie, and there was this movie I'd long wanted to see because the animation looked cool, called Secret of the Kells by the animation studio Cartoon Saloon, an Irish-based animation studio. It's a movie about these monks called illuminators who illuminate the Bible by hand painting it. And it's sort of a fantastical version of the real-life Book of Kells, which is a real illuminated manuscript of the Bible, which has some beautiful illustrations of illuminating the scriptures. So I was very much emboldened by this movie. I was very inspired by this. And as it happened, a month or two ago, I had bought it on an impulse. This leather-bound blank journal. Because it was on sale on Etsy, and I was like, I could probably use this for something. It was right on the shelf next to me, and I was like, And my brain put two and two together. And so, putting two and two together, I decided to start the project of hand painting a text. Now, right now I'm doing second essays on the stream, but that wasn't the book I started with. Actually, I was a bit conflicted about which one to start with originally. The book I ended up choosing to start with was Sirach, for reasons I'll discuss more in depth in probably a different stream. But essentially, Sirach it's a book of the Apocrypha, counted as canonical in the Catholic Church. A beautiful book, so I chose that book to really dig into with my calligraphy project, and eventually I branched out and started doing this second project, second essays, in addition to that, which I'm doing now. One of the wonderful things about doing this sort of project, doing this calligraphy, is like most artwork, it really allows you to get your emotions on the page. The way you choose to approach the text, to illuminate it, to really play with different artwork between the margins and the margins, or between the words, it gives you a certain freedom. But also, you're still bound by the text, so it gives you a framework to go into art with, a framework. But it's not a framework that's necessarily going to keep you bound, at least not for my case. Because I do play around with how I do the project, how I do the art, so there's a framework, but a framework of freedom, if that makes sense. Of how I do this. developed over time. I'm used to it. Originally, I would be very methodical about the lines. I'd be sure to measure out the width between, or the length between this and this and this. I'd be like, okay, 1.5 inches has to be exact. But I eventually found that that was too time consuming, and it really wasn't necessary because I got used to just estimating it. And honestly, I think it looks better just estimating it, because more than often I'm pretty close to roughly the same amount for each line. Yeah. Another thing that's beautiful about doing this sort of project is that it really illuminates text and illuminates manuscripts. It brings to light the word that you're doing. And some people would say, well, why shouldn't you be doing it more, like especially if second Erasmus, shouldn't you be doing the Bible instead of like an apocryphal book? And I'm of the mindset, well, it's still a beautiful book, even if it's not part of the biblical canon. So I think that there's still a lot to be gained and gleaned from even extra biblical materials. Otherwise, why write any books aside from the 72 or the 66 that are in the Bible? And then just what's true of any art form. It adds beauty to the world. And I think that that's worth doing. I think God smiles upon that which is beautiful. I'm kind of radical about beauty in that I think all beauty is, if it's beautiful, it is godly. And of course you can argue, and some people will point out, well, what about that which is obviously ungodly and is beautiful? And I'd say it's godly in spite of itself. Because God is a lover of beauty. Both Old and New Testament point to that, I feel. Look at how the degree to which they went about ensuring that the temples of the Old Testament were made to specific degrees to accentuate their beauty. Look to how Jesus, in his ministry, talked about the beauty of the human body, the beauty of the human form, in terms of like extolling us to live lives whereby our inner spiritual beauty would manifest out for our good works, through adding goodness to the world. So I think artwork is a beautiful means by which to really bring to fruition our inner selves out into this world and add to the beauty of God's creation. There are a lot of good reasons to do it. And probably the last reason, and one of the most important, is that it is a form of evangelization in of itself, because these books talk about God, they talk about relating to God, and so illuminating them like I'm doing really makes people think more deeply about their relation with God, and just seeing how beautiful I can make these old texts, I feel, is a means to show forth my light into the world, and my faith into the world. That, yeah, I'm just really glad I'm able to do this project, for sure.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0. Discovery, go and throttle up. Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
More thou searchest, more thou shalt marvel. The world is fast. Yeah, certainly true. The more we go about looking for this world, the more we'll be flabbergasted by its ways. That's why I don't watch the news. To pass away. It doesn't seem that way, I think. After all, it's been 2,000 years, over 2,000 years since Christ's passing. But God does things on His time, not ours.
site of the orbit of Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower. Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
The nice thing about doing these streams is being able to have a way to share the art I do with others and really evangelize through that artwork. It's really nice. Go on a brief break, but it's just going to be real quick. I need to plug my phone in to charge it. back. I'm intentionally going for a bit of a rough around the edges look, so I intentionally allow some of the flutters to fall off the page, so to say. So I have this sheet of paper here. about out of coffee, but I think I shall get some more in briefly. And I'm back. Thank you for your guys' patience, those who are there. I'm going to wrap up there, wrap up the stream there. But for all those who've joined, thank you very much for stepping on in, watching the stream. Thank you for enjoying the art and the chatter that I've given. And I hope you all have a blessed day. God bless.